So looking at a map of Europe, you've probably noticed a lot of little dots here and there that say things like Andorra or San Marino or Luxembourg, and you wonder to yourself, are these actually countries? I mean, they got the same fonts as the country, but usually even on a world-sized map, you can't see them at all. So in fact, yes, they are countries, and most of them have pretty much the same independence as any other country does. So the next logical point is, well, how do these things exist to today? I mean, kings love nothing more than to expand their land and their wealth and their ego. So why would they ever tolerate little tiny spits of land that could easily be conquered by their very large and powerful and industrious countries? The thing about microstates is that a lot of them were formed, protected, and saved by individuals more so than the power of the people. Throughout the Middle Ages, these kings started eating up more and more land and more and more sovereignty to make themselves more and more glorious and all this stuff. And then they would collapse, and then there would be more, and then it just keep happening. Over time, we slowly begin to see the countries and borders we see today. You may ask yourself, okay, I know how they exist in the first place, but how do they exist today after the 100 million thousand years between the medieval ages and today? Now, each one of these places has an individual reason for their survival, but I'll explain the three smallest countries, and you'll sort of get the idea of how these little guys existed till today. Third smallest micronation in Europe is San Marino. At 61 square kilometers, it's about the third the size of Washington, D.C. The country was founded in 301 AD by Saint Marinus, who was a Croatian stonemason that came to Italy to spread Christianity, because Italy clearly did not have enough of it. Now, it survived throughout all that time and all its Middle Ages and all those shenanigans due to its alliances with places like Urbino and the Papal States, and of course its mountain fortress that it's well renowned for, till Napoleon showed up, of course. And when he conquered Italy, he came upon San Marino, and instead of stomping on it like everything else in Europe, he offered them more land. So San Marino probably thought about this for quite a while. I mean, it would really increase the size of their country to the point where it could actually have some relevant independence. However, they declined, which was probably the best idea they ever had, because when the Italian unification showed up, they would have had difficulty allowing a very large San Marino to exist alongside their dreams of a unified Italy. But a tiny one they could deal with. Now, the Italian unification showed up, and a guy named Giuseppe Garibaldi was one of the head honchos for the Italian unification movement. Italy had a lot of trouble unifying, even though a lot of people wanted to get involved. Now, Giuseppe took refuge in the small republic of San Marino, where he was treated so kindly that he promised them, okay, I'm going to unify all of Italy, but I'll keep you guys out of it, which I think is pretty ironic. So after the unification movement in Italy, San Marino was pretty much assured its independence. Italy did occupy them during World War I, but it didn't hold, of course. Next to the third smallest microstates is Monaco, which is 2 square kilometers, or about 3/4 of a mile. Pretty sure you've traveled farther than the distance of Monaco walking around in your own home throughout the day. So Monaco sort of existed since Greek-Roman times, but not really. And then they even existed when Genoa was granted land to them, but not really. Monaco officially kind of existed when a man by the name of Francesco Grimaldi. Yes, the Grimaldis that still run Monaco today. So he showed up in 1297 and captured the fortress that was defending Monaco and declared himself the ruler. Well, Genoa came in and said, no, we're the rulers, so they came in and knocked him out, and Genoa held on to Monaco for the next 100 years. So the Grimaldis, just like true Monacans, showed up with their wallet and they demanded to buy the little land that Francesco conquered. After that time, they remained pretty well independent throughout the Middle Ages. Again, it was alliances and treaties and all that stuff, and playing ball with France. It didn't have any problems really until 1793, when French revolutionary forces showed up and they annexed it and kicked out the Grimaldis. So the Grimaldis wouldn't be able to get their land back for another 21 years. And then a year later, it just went right back to France. And even after all of that, Monaco still had some problems when peasants revolted, and Monaco was forced to give up 95% of its land in order to stay independent. However, during all this time, the economy of Monaco was exploding. They built the famous casino, the Monty Carlo, which the government wisely used to cut all the taxes, which attracted wealthy people into the country, which then increased the wealth again, which then allowed it to earn some prestige, which then attracted more wealthy people, which raised the money even higher, which attracted more prestige, which attracted more wealthy people, and you get the idea. But now I'll move on to the smallest microstate, the smallest country, the smallest anything in the world, the Vatican City. And it's about 0.44 kilometers, or within shouting distance. I mean, there's buildings larger than this country. So the Holy See, or the Vatican, or the Vatican City, or the Papacy, or the Pope Zone is the oddball out. Most other microstates are just tax havens that are supported by the smallness of their own existence, but the Vatican City is more of a corporation that was given some land to do whatever it wanted. I was joking about the names, but all of those titles do have different meanings for the place, so from here on out I'm just going to refer to the place as the Holy See. So a Christian authority has always existed in Rome since St. Peter came by. However, it wasn't until Constantine donated some land to the church in the 4th century that the church had any real land. So for the next few hundred years, kings donated land to the church, but none of the donations nations allowed it to become its own sovereign state. So during the 600s, barbarians showed up and destroyed a lot of the possessions that the Byzantines owned in Italy. The Pope, although still technically a subject under the Byzantine emperor, declared himself an independent state. As Byzantium lost more and more land of Italy, the popes became emboldened and assumed natural control of Italy. During the Middle Ages, the Holy See expanded their land exponentially and even managed to carve out a little piece of land from France when they were kicked out of Italy. However, that didn't last, and then 73 years later, the Holy See showed up back to Italy with its French acquisition. So of course the Renaissance was a wild time for the Holy See. The popes at this time were constantly warring, conquering, and manipulating. This was the time of the Borgia, and this was also of course times of the Protestant Reformation and other transgression. However, it wasn't until the French Revolution where, yet again, our boy Napoleon showed up that the Vatican lost any real power on the state level. So France came back and took all the lands back that the church owned in France, and then the Italian possessions were swept up into an Italian republic, which then was annexed by France. Then when Napoleon was out, the Holy See reclaimed their land with some very angry and closed-minded popes. Then a few decades later, that Italian unification movement showed up and took the lion's share of the church land. All that was left was Rome and some land surrounding it. Then a few years later, Italy decided that Rome would look better under their control and had a small war to take it. The church lost but pretended to be independent inside of a few buildings. The popes put up such a fuss that in 1929, Italy signed a treaty with them. The pope gave up all of his sovereign rights to all of his land, and then Italy let them have a little campus that they could pretend was their own little country. And with that, the littlest country we know and love today was born. So in summary, these microstates really had two periods that they really had to worry about. One was the Middle Ages and the Revolutionary period when Napoleon showed up. Thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.